Some objects are just objects. Metal and fabric, wood and stone, harmless, forgotten, dead. But some things stay awake. A music box that plays in the middle of the night, even after its key rusted away decades ago. A mirror that shows someone standing behind you, someone who isn't there when you turn around. A locket that burns against your skin, even though its owner has been buried for 100 years. They say strong emotions leave a mark. That rage, when pure enough, pain, when deep enough, can soak into the things around us, into walls, into rooms, into the very threads of what we wear. And sometimes, those memories don't just linger. They wake up. They wait. They hunt. In 1880, in the hills of New England, a 13-year-old girl named Sarah Blackwood ran through the woods behind her new husband's estate. She'd been married that morning. It was her wedding night, and she was running for her life. Sarah wasn't running from a monster. She was running from her husband, a 42-year-old man who'd paid her father's debts in exchange for a child bride. That was legal then, common even. Sarah's father had called it an opportunity. Her mother had called it duty. Sarah called it what it was: slavery. When Sarah refused to consummate the marriage, he'd smack her. And when she still refused, well, Thomas Blackwood wasn't a patient man. Sarah tried to beg, tried to reason, tried to remind them she was just a child. Thomas hit her again and again. And when she crumpled to the ground, his mother spoke the words that sealed Sarah's fate. "She's defective. Throw her off. We'll get our money back and find you a better one." And he did. Sarah died slowly. Bones shattered. Lungs collapsed. Alone in the dark, with the sound of the sea. But as her life drained into those rocks, something else happened. Her rage, pure, justified, infinite, drained into the dress. And with her last breath, Sarah Blackwood made a promise, a curse, a test.
Every bride who wears this will have the choice I never had. Choose yourself or join me forever.
The dress was recovered the next morning, miraculously undamaged. Beautiful. Timeless. The Blackwood family claimed Sarah's death was an accident. Grief-stricken bride, wedding night nerves, tragic fall. They buried her in an unmarked grave and never spoke her name again. But Sarah wasn't finished. The dress carried her rage, her pain, and her desperate belief that she could save other women from her fate. What Sarah didn't understand, what she couldn't understand, trapped in the moment of her own death, was that rage doesn't discriminate. Rage doesn't ask questions. Rage only knows one answer: violence. Over the next century and a half, the dress passed through many hands. Sometimes sold, sometimes inherited, sometimes donated after tragedies no one wanted to discuss. And with each bride who wore it, the curse grew stronger, fed by pain, fed by silence, fed by women who'd forgotten how to fight. Dorothy Sullivan, 1927. She wanted to go to university. Her fiancé, Charles, wanted a housewife. He won, because he always won. And on her wedding night, when Dorothy tried to leave, he made it clear she belonged to him now. The dress gave Dorothy the strength she'd never had. At the reception, in front of 100 guests, Sarah's rage poured through her. Dorothy stabbed Charles 17 times. She didn't stop until 4 men pulled her off his body. And when she came back to herself, covered in his blood, she couldn't remember doing it. The trial lasted 3 days. They called her a witch, said she was possessed by the devil. In a way, they were right. She was sentenced to death. And the dress survived, pulled from the ashes, somehow untouched, perfect. Margaret Hayes, 1956. The perfect housewife, perfect hair, perfect home, perfect smile. Her husband Richard was a pillar of the community. Everyone thought Margaret was so lucky. What they didn't see was Richard's psychological warfare, the constant criticism, the isolation from friends and family, the way he made Margaret believe she was worthless, broken, lucky that anyone would put up with her. Margaret wore the dress to their 1-month anniversary dinner, a surprise for Richard. She wanted to make him happy, wanted to be good enough, just once. The dress had other plans. Margaret poisoned his wine with rat poison from the basement. She watched him drink it, watched him choke, watched him die over the course of 3 hours, and she felt nothing. When Richard finally died, the possession lifted. Margaret came back to herself, and she understood immediately what she'd done. Margaret wrote one sentence. "I'm sorry. It was the dress. It made me." Then she swallowed every pill in the medicine cabinet, and she lay down on her perfect bed in her perfect house and closed her eyes. Amanda Richardson, 2019. Engaged to Marcus, a tech entrepreneur. He wasn't physically abusive, just controlling, possessive. The kind of man who checked her phone, tracked her location, isolated her from friends for her own good. Amanda bought the dress from a vintage boutique in Brooklyn, put it on for a fitting, and the visions started immediately. Amanda fought it. For 2 weeks, she battled the possession. Blackouts, lost time, violent urges she couldn't explain. She'd wake up standing over Marcus with a knife, with no memory of how she got there. The dress wouldn't let her take it off, wouldn't let her tell anyone. Every time she tried to speak, her throat closed. On what should have been her wedding day, Amanda had a complete psychotic break. They found her in her apartment, still in the dress, catatonic. She'd carved "It was the dress" into the walls, over and over, hundreds of times. Amanda's been institutionalized ever since. She still claims the dress made her do it, that ghosts tried to make her kill Marcus. The doctors call it a severe dissociative episode, wedding stress. Marcus moved on quickly, married someone else within the year. The dress was returned to the vintage shop, cleaned, repaired, and put back on display. Still perfect, still beautiful, still waiting. Dorothy, Margaret, Amanda's almost ghost, not quite trapped, not quite free. And Sarah binding them all. 3 women who killed, 1 who almost did. All of them trying to scream a warning, no one could hear. And then the dress found its next victim. Not through the bride herself, but through the person who loved her most. Emma Chen was 26 years old, a graphic designer, from a good family, engaged to a good man from another good family. On paper, Emma's life was perfect. The problem was, Emma wasn't paper. She was a person, and she was drowning. Emma's engagement wasn't arranged in the old-fashioned sense. No contract signed, no money exchanged. But the Chens and the Richardsons had been business partners for 20 years. Their companies were intertwined. When Emma and James started dating in college, both families saw it as destiny, as inevitable, as perfect. Emma saw it differently. But Emma had never been very good at saying what she saw. The wedding was 3 months away. Emma hadn't chosen the venue, or the flowers, or the menu, or the guest list. She'd been asked about her preferences exactly twice. Both times, she'd been told gently, lovingly, that she was wrong. Emma had learned something over 26 years. Being loved came with conditions. Being good meant being quiet. Being perfect meant saying yes, always yes, to everything, no matter what it cost her. And it had cost her everything. That night, Emma did what she always did when she felt trapped. She performed happiness for an audience of strangers. Emma's social media told a story. The happy bride, the perfect couple, the dream wedding. But if you looked closely, really looked, you could see it. The exhaustion in her eyes, the way her smile was always just a little too wide, the way she never looked at James in photos. She looked at the camera, at the audience, at anyone but him. Emma's phone was full of lists. What she should want, what was trending, what would photograph well, what would make her mother happy, what would impress James's family. Hundreds of notes, thousands of words, and not one of them about what Emma actually felt. And then the dress found her. Later, Emma would remember this moment. The way her stomach dropped when she saw that dress. The way her hands went cold. The way every instinct screamed run. But Emma had spent 26 years ignoring her instincts. Why would tonight be different? The dress was beautiful. It was breathtaking.
It's gorgeous, Mom. Let me try it on.
The dress fit like it had been made for her, like it had been waiting for her. And maybe it had. Emma performed for the camera, said all the right things, smiled all the right smiles, and her mother posted it immediately. Hashtag vintage bride. Hashtag sustainable fashion. Hashtag blessed. Within an hour, it had 300 likes. And then Emma was alone with the dress. And for the first time in years, Emma looked at herself in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Emma saw it, just for a second. Another face where hers should be. Young, desperate, screaming without sound, and then it was gone. Emma told herself it was nothing. Stress, exhaustion, too much wedding planning. She reached back for the zipper. The zipper fought her, just for a moment. Then it let go. And Emma told herself she'd imagined that too. But that night, as Emma lay in bed, she couldn't stop looking at the dress, hanging there in the darkness, perfect and still and watching. And Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she'd invited something terrible into her home. She had. The dress had marked her, claimed her, and now it would teach Emma what happens to women who forget how to say no. Emma's sleep that night was not peaceful. She dreamed of running, of falling, of screaming underwater where no one could hear. She woke gasping at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat. And she was wearing the dress. Emma hadn't put the dress back on. She remembered taking it off, hanging it up, going to bed in her pajamas. But here she was, the fabric clinging to her skin like it had grown there. And the zipper that had worked perfectly hours before was now sealed shut, as if the dress had fused to her skin. Emma pulled until her fingers bled. The zipper didn't move. The dress didn't tear. It just held on, patient, waiting. And then the room tilted. The walls blurred, and Emma wasn't in her apartment anymore. Emma fell into darkness. But in that darkness, 3 women were waiting. 3 brides who had worn the dress before her. 3 warnings she couldn't ignore. What happens next? If you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button, because part 2 is going to show you exactly what this dress is capable of. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens to Emma next.